and I won't back down. Hey, baby, there ain't no easy way out. Hey, everybody, thanks so much for joining us right here on The Right View. Tonight, we're joined by the post-millennials Libby Emmons and host of the Alex Marlow Show, Alex Marlow. Guys, you are two of my favorites to talk to all the time. I wish we were talking about literally anything other than what we're going to talk about today. But it's the only thing, guys, that I feel like any of us can talk about. That our friend, I think a friend to probably all three of us, fellow, champion of conservative values, and I would say sort of a generational leader in Charlie Kirk, of course, was assassinated last week, shockingly, and in the most horrific way, I think, imaginable to all of us. Just want to give you guys both an opportunity off the top just to give me your thoughts. Libby, I'll start with you. Just overall about Charlie and really, I think that his impact, he probably had no idea how impactful his life was. To see over the weekend the vigils held not just in the United States, in the UK, in New Zealand, in South Korea, literally all over the world, Libby, to see the record attendance at church on Sunday. I mean, I'm just like, I have chills and tears in my eyes talking about it, because Charlie probably in his wildest dreams didn't think that he'd be able to inspire this, but he has. And just your overall thoughts, as we're reflecting almost a week out.
Yeah, I think Charlie would probably say that wasn't his impact, but that was, the Lord working through him. And that anything that he was able to do with regard to reaching out to people was only because the Holy Spirit was working in his life. And he was a really good man. I have been really buoyed by seeing how many people he touched, people that he knew personally, people that just met him one time, people that just saw his clips, people that attended his events and conferences. His impact was so far and wide, as you said, and I'm really honored that I got to know him just a little bit that I did.
Alex, what do you think?
So Charlie got his start in politics writing for me, I'm happy to say. He was a high school student, and he pitched us on an article at Breitbart News about bias in textbooks. And Joe Pollack, my longtime colleague at Breitbart, suggested to him, well, actually, you should be the citizen journalist here. You should write it up yourself. And that was the spirit of Andrew Breitbart. And Charlie venerated Andrew. He loved Andrew. He never got to meet Andrew, but he said that Andrew was a great inspiration to him. And he said, okay, I'll do it. And the story did something that happens sometimes, but not really that often, which is that it was everywhere. It went completely viral. It was one shot. It was a one shot, went completely viral. He was on Fox. He was everywhere. And Turning Point may have either had just started and was just a little kernel, or hadn't quite started yet. And I think that really propelled him to put his foot on the gas and say, I'm gonna really go for this. And a couple of years later, I was at a Tea Party event. You guys might remember those. There used to be these things called tea parties.
Yeah.
And this may have been the last part of Charlie's life where he had some time on his hands. And he and I just hung out for a day in South Carolina in Myrtle Beach. And it was sort of an overcast day where we were both speaking briefly at this Tea Party thing. And he'd give me a bunch of stories at that point. And I said, well, you should come work for me. Let's do it. And he said, I think this Turning Point thing is just big enough that I'm going to see it through. And let's see how it goes. Well, I think he made the right call. Unfortunate for me at the time, but I think fortunate for all of us today. But what's noteworthy about Charlie is not just that Turning Point was so big, is that he also, in the same time, took over podcasting. And during the same time he was taking over activism and podcasting, he became a dominant force in social media. And then finally, in his last year or two, he finally cracked that code with young people in colleges. And he tried so hard for so long. I wouldn't say toiling, but it was such a slow build on the campuses. And he'd finally cracked the code on how to reach kids, to go there and to sit down. Don't lord over them on a stage. Sit down, talk to them, let the shit libs, for lack of a better expression, come to the front and talk to you. And treat them with respect and dignity and answer their questions with a smile on your face. And once he did that, that was just too much to bear for the evil forces in this country. He had just taken over too much, and that's what made him the biggest target. So it's an amazing arc. It's historic, and I'm happy that I got to play a small part of it, and I'm sure I'll be telling that story for the rest of my life.
That's actually amazing. I didn't know that. So that the interview that I know I've seen time and time again over the course of the past several days of Charlie on with two other students, was that because of the Breitbart article on Fox News?
Yeah, I'm. Which one? It was probably that one. You got to send it to me because I don't want to.
Yeah,
it might have been.
That's amazing.
Yeah, it might have been.
It's so.
But
cool
I know
hear.
that the story was he had the Bison textbook article, pitch it to me. We said you write it up yourself. He ended up on Fox News, and that's what gave him the bug. So I don't remember the specific interview. I probably should at this point bone up on it, but it's been busy over here, Laura. As it has been for you guys, I'm sure.
I'm sure it has. It's amazing to hear stories like that because I feel like this one person, he had this vision, and he came into the Trump org offices. I don't even remember how many years ago, 12 years ago maybe, and literally was like, hey, got this idea, and here's what I think is going to happen. Like, we're going to inspire, students. We're going to inspire college students students on college campuses. And I remember, like, the undertaking was rather huge, and we were kind of like, okay, well, good luck with that. He did it, though. Like, he got it done to his credit, and I think, Libby, that's the thing that I keep trying to impress upon people. There's so many people who know Charlie for social media, for the videos of him, of course, debating on college campuses. But he started Turning Point from nothing. When you went to those events, you knew that he had his hand in everything that was going on. He was out there like hustling around all the time, fundraising. He was literally everywhere. My husband did an interview with me this weekend for my Fox show, and he said, this guy must have worn through pairs of shoes because Charlie was everywhere. He was doing everything all the time for everybody. I think that, people who look at themselves sometimes and are looking for some sort of inspiration, I hope that going forward, we continue to look at Charlie for inspiration because, man, this guy had a dream. He had a vision. He had goals. He worked his tail off to make it happen, and he was unapologetic with all of it, and he had his hand in all of it. And, I say all the time, the times that we had the highest highs in my family and in politics, Charlie was there. He was also there for the lowest lows. He was always around, and he was always championing what he believed in, the causes he believed in, the people he believed in. And I hope that is something that becomes very apparent if it isn't already about him.
Yeah, and I loved hearing that story, Alex. Everyone who I've talked to since this happened has really felt compelled to talk about their personal, their personal inspiration that they got from Charlie, whether it's people on post-millennial staff who are telling me, I would never even have this job if it weren't for Charlie. I would not have even gone into this line of work if it wasn't for Charlie. Or Anna Paulina Luna last night at the DC Memorial telling a story she's told before, but the one where she says, what, I'm not going to go into medicine. I'm going to go into this because of Charlie, and she's made such a huge difference.
And by the way, that was my favorite moment last night. So I'm glad you brought that up. I honestly, I think that was my favorite.
I also loved when she said, Charlie Kirk didn't need college. Colleges needed Charlie Kirk.
Great line.
Amen. Okay, he dropped out of college. I mean, that's the part of this that I'm like, what an intelligent, encyclopedic memory this guy had. Charlie was incredible. He would go sit out there, and it didn't matter. He never caveated anything. Whenever he sat on those college campuses, he would say, come at me with whatever. And he knew everything about everything.
Honesty. He was just straight up honest, which I appreciate so much, and it's so important to me. I actually, the people who I've talked to about this, the people who I know are impacted, range from my son's friends who are 15 to people well older than me. And my birthday was last week, so terrible birthday again. Always. September 11th birthday doesn't work out, but it doesn't matter. It's totally irrelevant. But yeah, everyone, I was talking to Tim Pool last week, and he was telling me, Charlie was instrumental in Rumble, and Charlie brought Tim's whole crew out to AmFest, and treated them so graciously, and they loved getting to do that opportunity. I don't even remember what my point was, but he was everywhere all at once for everything.
Well, but I think the personal stories is so big, and the thing that I've been so lucky because I've known Charlie since the very beginning is I have many of them. I think the origin story is the best, but I think that the thing that's amazing about him is that he really believed in other people, and he was so encouraging. And
Yeah.
it's interesting that I've had years where I talk to Charlie a little bit and years where I talk to him every day. And for better or for worse, this has been a year where I talk to him every day. And so he's been such a champion that it's just so encouraging. And I'm not a particularly social person, and I get a lot of recognition, which I've been very blessed to get a lot of recognition for a very long time, and I'm very grateful for that. But there was just a very special way that Charlie would recognize people to make them feel great, and it was a real gift that he had, and it was not just for people with big platforms and some name ID. It was young people who had never been heard in their life, and he gave you that feeling that I'm hearing you right now, and it's sensational. It's sensational quality.
Yeah, I went back and looked at the first time I was ever on air with him, which was also the first time I met him. And of course, I was rather intimidated, But I went in and I sat down and I talked to him, and we were talking about, and it was very meaningful to me. We were talking about how Joe Biden had said that no right was absolute. And we were both absolutely horrified, completely horrified by this. And we started going through all the rights that are, of course, absolute, and that these are God-given rights.
Yeah.
These are natural rights. They are not bestowed upon us by government. And just last week, Charlie was lambasting Tim Kaine, who was saying that it was offensive to say that our rights are given to us by God. And I was like, yep, we talked about that the very first time I met him. And I still believe that, and I still think that that is incredibly paramount. We can't forget these things.
You know what I think is really amazing too is that it doesn't matter how well you knew Charlie. Everybody felt like they were his friend.
Yes, that's right.
Last week I was on September 11th. I was at Fox News, and everyone in the entire building had some story about Charlie, about meeting him in passing, doing his hair, doing his makeup, saying hello to him in the hallway. They all felt like his friend. And this was a guy who, truly what he built and what he created and the power he had with the audience he reached and the people he impacted was enormous. This was a guy who had the ability to, call up the president and vice president of the United States, and they would always pick up on him because they loved him. They adored him. They respected him immensely. They wouldn't be at the White House right now without Charlie. They know that. Or it could be somebody who, like you guys are all saying, this is really a situation where he would reach out to people or repost something that somebody who kind of was obscure out there and an unknown would post on social media, and it would kind of elevate them or give them the inspiration to kind of keep going or build upon that. I thought it was so amazing to hear that the vice president was going to host the Charlie Kirk show on Monday. I think that I don't know that a vice president has ever done something like that. I don't know that a person with that kind of power and level in government has done. I think it's probably first ever. But I think that, Alex, to me, that tells everybody the impact of Charlie Kirk is something that, I don't even know if we know yet. I thought that was a really cool thing to see that the vice president not only flew his casket on Air Force Two from Utah back to Arizona. We saw the video last week of his wife Erica with the second lady, with Usha Vance, holding hands, coming off Air Force Two to bring him back home to Arizona. But that he went that far to fill the seat in his show that was left empty, obviously, at the end of last week. I thought that was really powerful.
Yeah, this is something that I've gotten to know J.D. fairly well also over the years. We were very early champions of him at Breitbart when he was running his first Senate primary, and was a real outsider, as was Charlie. And both of them are real connectors for a huge tent movement. You have to have people who can broker the peace, people who are respected by all sides within the movement. And one thing that Charlie really worked on as a person is being able to be someone who keeps the coalition together. And I think that a lot of people began to understand that about him in the last few years, that was a very high priority for him. And JD is uniquely gifted at this. And you can see it because if the president does something that the base maybe doesn't love, like a quick bombing in Iran, where something that there are certain parts of the movement who love it, certain won't know, certain people won't like it, JD will be the one to watch for the messaging. Like, what's really going on here? And he's incredibly gifted at it. And so I feel like this is just a terrific use of his talents, and of course a great tribute to Charlie, but that he's the one out there saying everything is going to be not just okay, everything's going to be better. Like, we're going to make it better. Of course not for Erica and the kids, of course not. That's impossible. But for everyone else, we're going to take Charlie's legacy and we're going to make it even bigger than anyone ever imagined. And he's uniquely capable of doing that. So it's very heartening, and good on him and good on everyone behind the show.
Yeah. By the way, Alex, I appreciate you so much saying that things will be better. I mean, I hate that this had to happen, but I do feel like there was some kind of a shift on Wednesday evening. I feel like we all felt it. There was something that changed. And Libby, I don't know, obviously God's plan is he knows, we don't know, but this moment in time, none of us will forget where we were when we heard about this happening. This is our JFK moment of our era, for sure. You look at people of like our parents' generation, they say, we know exactly where we were when JFK was shot. We will all know exactly where we were and how we found out about Charlie Kirk. But there was a shift. And I feel like I started off talking about this, but to see the way people have been encouraged to get back to church, to see the vigils held all around the world for him, to see that the NFL teams, I took my kids on Sunday with my husband to a Dolphins game, and there was a moment of silence there. Of course, I got probably overly emotional with the whole thing, but it was amazing to see. There were only a handful of NFL teams. Let's call them out, the ones who didn't do it. The Lions, the Bengals, the Ravens, Colts, and Vikings did not do it. All the rest did, though. And I thought that was really incredible. I do feel like that there is this kind of spiritual revival that we are approaching, or maybe we're here right now in the country and in the world in general. Charlie, everybody keeps kind of going back to this clip of him saying the way he wants to be remembered was for his courage and his faith. There's no doubt about that. There's no doubt he wore that on his sleeve. He talked about it all the time. We all know where he is right now. And I think that's the only solace that a lot of us have, is that we know he's in heaven. We know exactly what happened to him upon his death. Do you feel that too, Libby? I feel like this one is different. We all feel like something changed and something shifted last week.
Yeah, I think that you're right. And you have to remember the JFK moment was followed rather rapidly by the MLK Jr. moment. And then Robert F. Kennedy was also assassinated just 4 months after that. And if you look at 1968, Lyndon Johnson was able to push the Civil Rights Act through in large part because of what had happened that year. And I think that a lot of us look to the president right now to say, what are we going to do to eradicate this dangerous ideology in our nation and prevent it from taking more lives? It has taken so many lives, not just Charlie Kirk's life, but recently school children in Minnesota. And we've seen it, over and over again. And it does feel like this is different. And I want more than anything to continue this legacy of the Charlie Kirk movement. I want to push this forward. I want more young men to stand up and say, yes, I'm a strong young man and I'm strong in my faith and I'm going to start a family and I'm going to be responsible, take care of the people that I love. I want more of that for our nation. Our nation needs that. But there's something else that you said that I think is also exceedingly important to note, and that is that prayer vigils popped up all over the country. The one in D.C. was organized with like 48 hours notice, but there were spontaneous, organic ones all over the country, all over the world. And you know what there were not? There were not riots. We did not go out and burn anything down. We did not torch neighborhoods. We did not start railing at law enforcement despite this horrible thing having happened. We did not do any of those things. No cars were burned up. No stores were looted. None of us got new Nikes the wrong way. None of that happened at all. And so every time you hear a Democrat politician start going off about how there's political violence on both sides and we have to condemn political violence on both sides. I urge you to show them clips of the aftermath of Charlie Kirk's assassination, and you will see people with candles. You will see people clutched together in prayer, praying to God, looking to each other for comfort and solace, and not causing mass destruction in this nation.
Women need to take maintaining our strength seriously. No matter how active you are, as we get older, it can catch us all off guard. Your sleep, your energy, your balance, everything can just start to feel off. I started using the Juvent Micro Impact platform when I learned how quickly women start to lose bone density, especially in our 40s. The Juvent Micro Impact platform, however, supports your body's natural ability to rebuild bone density, circulation, and even stem cells. In just 20 minutes a day, I started to feel more energized, more stable and grounded in my everyday workouts, more myself. Your body knows how to heal. Juvent helps it remember. Take your strength seriously. You can save $300 now at juvent.com with code LARA. As a mom, I'm always looking for something that I can actually watch with my family. Something that's more than just noise in the background, because you guys all know what I'm talking about, right? Sketch really surprised me, and in the best sort of way. Sketch is the newest film from Angel Studios, and it does exactly that. It follows a young girl who loses her sketchbook in a mysterious pond, and from there, her drawings begin to come to life. But they're not just characters, they're her emotions, her struggles, and her imagination all tangled together. It's so imaginative, it's so creative, but it's also got heart, which we could all use more of. It reminds me of those movies that I loved growing up, the ones that made you feel something and left you smiling at the end. Remember those? Sketch opens up in theaters August 6th, and you can get 2 free tickets at angel.com/Lara. It's the kind of story that stays with you and sparks meaningful conversations with your kids long after the credits roll. I mean, it is such a great point, Libby, and I think we all felt that too. It was notable how peaceful all of this was. It was notable how positive all of the I guess, demonstrations you would call it, but positive prayer vigils around the country. You know, that, like I was just saying, the NFL teams, I think the Yankees on September 11th also hosted a moment of silence. All of these things are very significant. But Alex, I think we all, in the 3 of us here, a lot of people who listen to this show, who watch this, we have all seen the buildup to this. And we know one of the ways we got here was because it was just acceptable out there to label anyone who considered themselves to be a conservative. We know they did it to Charlie. We know they've done it to Donald Trump. We know everyone in our family, most of us on the right, have been labeled by the legacy media, and therefore online as well, with all of the people out there who spread the information, as Nazis, as fascists, Hitler. You go down the line of all these words that they just cavalierly, just casually throw around. Those actually have consequences. And we saw it last Wednesday, and now Charlie is no longer with us. You can't go out there and just kind of, to score political points, say these things and just think that nothing is going to happen. There is always someone out there who says, oh, maybe it's time I take matters into my own hands. And to Libby's point, I would dare anybody to find me the same amount of, kind of derogatory terminology and language used about Democrats as Republicans. You're not going to find it out there. There's been heightened, necessity, it feels like, out there by the legacy media to attack Republicans, to label us these things, get a little click, and then they don't care whether or not it's true. It's clickbait. That's how this all works these days. Somebody somewhere is responsible for this, and they need to do better out there, because we know what led to this. We know how we got here, and we have to stop now. It's enough.
So I think that one thing that's really important here, and I'm not going to yell because it's not the tone of the show today, but I just picture me yelling as I say this, is they're trying to kill us. They're hunting us.
Yeah.
And they hunted Charlie like he was a deer. And they hunted the children in Minnesota. And this person, the person who slaughtered children while they prayed, didn't come out of nowhere. These people get radicalized online. And we understood that. We didn't need to hear the motivation of the shooter. We didn't need to hear the family background or that he had a trans furry girlfriend. Like we knew what was going on. You'd have to be stupid not to know. We knew from the second it happened exactly what happened and why it happened. We could have filled in all the dots, all the specific details. It's just window dressing. We know exactly what's going on. There's a demonic force in this country that is preying on people, particularly young males, online, and is converting them into this very dark, nihilistic worldview where they feel like their only way to have any relevance is to take up arms and violence, and post all sorts of horrible stuff on the internet in the meantime. And so it's on us to push back. We push back with these incredible vigils. We push back with this peaceful grassroots campaign to get people fired and removed from polite society who were cheering on our hunting and murder and executions. Those are good places to start. But also law enforcement has got to be better. We've got to protect our people when they speak and honor the First Amendment. The university's got to be better. They have to be able to provide for security for campus speakers. And we need to be able to look at what's happening online and to at least make people aware of it. I don't know if we can ban all of it, but we need to investigate what's going on in these radicalization platforms. And parents, friends, neighbors, we need to be aware if people are going down this dark path immediately.
Yeah, I think that is not that I want to give any airtime at all to the guy who committed this atrocity. Supposedly, I guess we'll put that in there. We have to say that, Libby, but his father was like a 27-year law enforcement veteran. Like this guy, it's the opposite of what you would think. But I actually cannot imagine as horrific as all of this has been. Imagine you're the father, this guy's father, and he's the one who I guess ultimately turned the suspect in or convinced him to turn himself in. You must, look at kind of what Alex just said, the way that it seems so easy that these people kind of get sucked down this path online and get, indoctrinated and really just down this really dark path. One would think that a parent would know, but maybe not. And I don't know. It's scary stuff out there. The online world is absolutely terrifying. To parents out there, it's terrifying. My kids are still young. They don't have phones. They won't for a long time. They have very little access to anything, and that's how I always want to keep it. But in the back of your mind, you think about this stuff. And, there's the Blue Sky app out there that's kind of like a Twitter of sorts. And they literally have on there, I couldn't believe that, and somebody flagged it for the FBI, the Secret Service, DHS, that they're calling for all kinds of people to be next. They're calling for people like Ben Shapiro, Matt Walsh, Elon Musk. This is the dark part of the internet and social media. And all of it, I think, is really, really scary. And I don't know, Alex, you just said, kind of trying to what do we do about this? We do have a First Amendment freedom of speech. We do have the ability out there to share. We know that Elon Musk bought Twitter and turned it into X to give a free speech platform. But when you're suggesting that the next victim of an assassination, you can name these people, this is sick, twisted stuff out there.
Yeah, we need sunlight on this, right? We need to see what's really going on. I think it's definitely important for parents to be involved, but your kid hits a certain age and you don't have the kind of control over what it is that they see. A lot of kids got really involved in the internet in part because all of the schools handed them laptops.
Yep.
And said this is the only way you can communicate with each other now. So kids are talking on Discord. I know some parents who require their kids to add them to Discord groups. You have kids with, the full chat messages. They're doing all of this stuff. And parents do have to pay attention, but you have parents who are also poisoned. So I think law enforcement needs to be paying attention to what's going on in these groups. And we've seen evidence over the past several years that there are sort of deep underground dark web groups of people talking to each other about extremely horrific, vile things. And there's no reason to believe that stuff like this isn't transmitted on that. There was some indication that perhaps the Minnesota shooter was involved in online communities like these that law enforcement perhaps has not tapped into. And so I think that the president said, and law enforcement has said that they're looking into these kinds of groups in Utah, and it makes sense to look at them all over the country, what's going on here. And that's really important. And as for the threats, we see that yes, there does have to be a balance between free speech and law enforcement. But if you are a person on the internet writing posts about, and we've seen there were posts prior to this incident, prior to this killing, there were posts saying, what if Charlie Kirk is killed on September 10th? That was out there. So law enforcement needs to be much more diligent about being in these communities. And that's why it's so important, I think, too, that local law enforcement and federal law enforcement work together on things like this. Really dig into that, figure out what's going on and who's actually planning stuff, and interview these people.
And make sure that we are not scared into silence, because that's the goal of a lot of this, is that those of us out there that have any sort of voice in, the conservative movement and the, MAGA movement, whatever you want to call it, that this will get us to stop talking, that this will get a lot of us to just say, hey, it's a little too much for me. I don't know. People are calling for more assassinations out there. People are saying all these things online. That's the opposite of what we need to be doing right now, Alex. What we need to be doing, the way that we can continue Charlie's legacy, and the thing that he would want us to do, is to speak louder, is to get out there more, is to be more bold and unapologetic about speaking the truth. And it is scary. We all go to these different events. I mean, I'm sure you guys do the same as we do. You go to these events, you speak in front of hundreds of people. Last Monday, I spoke in front of over 1,000 people at an event, and you never think that anything like this is a possibility. And it's got to continue. We have to keep doing it. We need to do more of them. We cannot be scared into silence, because there's a horrible human being out there that did the unthinkable. We got to keep talking. We got to be a little bit louder sometimes, Alex.
Yeah, I think that's clear, and we have to not be afraid and not back down from things, but that does involve bigger presence of law enforcement and security. We can't go on campuses to outdoor events without bulletproof glass, without drone surveillance, and it's very alarming that this shooter was able to get this shot off. The universities need to be held to account, local law enforcement, governor, everyone, and it's not just that any of them wanted harm to Charlie, though of course the universities did. They would love it if Charlie got hurt. But it's just a point that we are not going to be able to free speech in this country unless we ramp up the protections for those who are speaking, because there are people, it is very clear online, who believe that it is okay to get executed because of your words. And this has been something that's been building up in this country. It's been building up for at least the last 10 years, but there is a very vocal minority who believes it is perfectly acceptable to kill people because they express viewpoints publicly that you disagree with. And it's a scary thought, but it's real. It's very real, and way more than enough numbers to make sure that things like this happen again. And they will. They will. This will not be the last one.
Do you worry, Libby? I've heard people talk about this. To Alex's point, you do need more security out there. You do have to have eyes on everything. I mean, you hate that we have to do it now, but you got to do it now, obviously. Do you feel like this is going to be an excuse for these universities to say, "Ooh, we can't have that conservative speaker here because, things could get a little escalated, things could get a little heightened. We don't have the funding to ensure the safety of this person." I'll tell you, they tried to do this to me and Charlie one time. I went to speak at my alma mater, NC State. I don't even know, 6 years ago now, 5 years ago now. We went, Charlie invited me. Culture War was the kind of tour he was doing. And you go and you engage with the student body there, and they kind of, you go back and forth with questions and answers, and he asked me to do it with him. And before we even got there, he called me and he said, look, the university is saying that the university police as well as the local police are saying they don't know that they can guarantee our safety. There's a huge protest that's going on because we're coming to the campus, and we don't know, like they're saying they don't know if we should go on. We went on and it was fine and all good. My point, I guess, is we already know that they've tried to deter a lot of conservative thought on college campuses. Do you feel like this is going to be just another way to say, like, hey, we can't have this here because it could be a little dangerous and we can't ensure anybody's safety?
Maybe, but as you just pointed out, they don't need any new excuses. They're perfectly comfortable banning conservative speakers from campus anyway. And I think we saw when Erica Kirk got up to speak, on Friday night, and she said the campus tour will continue. We're going to continue Turning Point. We're going to, continue the legacy that her husband left behind. She seemed very, very determined, and I know the whole organization seems very determined. And with Charlie's power behind them, I think it would be hard to sway them from detouring from this course. And as for the universities, I think they really need to get their head straight. We've seen a lot of work from the Trump administration dealing with our most prominent universities, Harvard and the other ones, and that's very important. That work needs to continue. They're violating Title IX, they're anti-Semitic, they're all the rest of it. But these universities are also responsible for employing professors who go out there and celebrate the public assassination of someone, and they are doing this just as the KKK celebrated the assassination of Martin Luther King Jr. KKK went out there in 68. They were like, hooray, this is wonderful. And that's what these professors are doing. They go out there, they literally, every single one of the three of us has been called a Nazi multiple times. And these professors are going out there and they're saying that this is a good thing, that a murder of an individual who inspired a lot of people, who was full of faith, who was non-racist, who was all the good things. They're saying that he's this bad man. What is the point of these universities if what they are doing is employing people who are openly racist, openly hostile to their opposition, opposed to free speech, opposed to our natural rights, opposed to law and order, opposed to open discourse, opposed to thinking things all the way through and having reasonable conversations? What are the universities doing? These professors have no business getting into the minds of our young people, and our young people need to be raised up so that they can lead this nation. And instead, what these universities are doing is raising them up to destroy it.
It's true, and it's why a lot of parents right now are questioning whether or not they should send their children to a four-year college institution.
Well, and they should though, Laura. So
yeah.
let's talk about this. Think about the nature of what the universities do. They're trying to get people prepared for adulthood. Are you making them more prepared for adulthood in these environments? No, it costs lots of money, not just for the parents, but for the taxpayers. We fund these things, and our loan programs provide this grift that provides this economic engine that keeps all these leftist Marxist professors in jobs so that they can make a living with their Marxism. And then it also ruins our cities. Our cities are, I'll tell you that there's a university pretty near me. It's a pretty conservative area. Like if you bump into a left winger in the area, there's a good chance they work at the university. Like just one of those things that happens, and it indoctrinates people and it pulls them away from those core Judeo-Christian conservative values a lot of families are raising their children with, and we're paying money to do it. And so why are we doing it? Okay, because you need a degree. Not to work for me. I've got people who have double Harvard degrees who work for me. I have people who have never worked for me, who have never went to college for a day. It doesn't make a difference. The only thing that matters to me is, are you fearless and are you honest? If you're fearless and honest, I can teach you. And that's it. And I'm sure Libby would echo the same thing about her company. So then what are we doing? We're doing STEM. Well, STEM, they're too slow. It's moving too fast now. You can't go get a 4-year STEM degree and expect to compete with people who had got a mentorship or an internship. I mean, AI is moving so fast. Things are changing daily. What if you're in the arts? I mean, what's the best way to make a living in the arts these days? It's probably marketing, because we're all being marketed all the time with creativity. That's changing every day. You don't go get a degree for that anymore. So why are we doing this? Why are we sending people these places? Unless you need to be a lawyer or doctor, I don't get it. Please explain to me. My email is aloha@alexmarlow.com. You can all email me. Explain to me why we're going to universities. I do not get it anymore.
Well, it's why I love that President Trump, he started this in his first term, and he's continuing it now. I sat down with Howard Lutnick last week, and we talked about this, about the fact that apprenticeship programs have been championed by this president. Trade schools have been championed by this president because you don't need a 4-year degree anymore. It's a different era. It's a different time. And it was pushed on all of us of our generation, I think, so heavily that it's almost pointless now. They almost have no meaning, because if everybody has the same degree, like, what's the point? Charlie Kirk did not have a college degree, and he changed the world. I love that our president right now has been the first president in my lifetime that I know of who has talked about the fact that, you know what, 4-year colleges, the way we've done it forever, the things that we've told kids, maybe it's not all that there is out there. Maybe there's a need for you to do something different. And by the way, we do need it. Because Libby, if we don't have plumbers and electricians and people to do these jobs, which we're losing them on a daily basis, those numbers are dropping. As a society, we're going to have a big problem coming up soon. These are great paying, great jobs that you have for a lifetime. And I'm glad that at least someone out there is talking about it. President Trump absolutely has talked about that.
Yeah, I think that's a huge deal too. And I think that more kids should look into the idea that they can be something other than a scholar. But also, I think our universities, and maybe we just need new universities, our universities need to get back to this idea that you are training scholars, that is part of what the job is, that the job is to steward Western civilization onto the next generation, to preserve our letters, to preserve our arts, to say, this is what the founding fathers did. This is what our history is, because we can't lose all of that. Mm-hmm. As soon as we start losing all of that or ceding ground to these leftists, they retcon our entire national history into something it is not. So we still do need those scholars. We need plumbers. We need electricians. We need scholars of American history. We need scholars of Western letters and arts. We need all of that. And maybe what we need are new universities. Maybe we need a university dedicated to the memory of Charlie Kirk. That's a great books university that is steeped in American history and that preserves our culture for next generations. That's what universities used to do, right? I mean,
yep.
I when I went to college, I studied philosophy and theater. Totally pointless on both counts, right? I mean, just totally, completely useless. And now I'm doing this. But things that I know stories. I know what makes a good story. I know, Plato and Aristotle. I know my classics. I know my Shakespeare. I know this stuff and I can make those references, right? Because scholarship also matters. It doesn't have to be for everybody, though. And not every kid wants to grow up and quote Moliere. We're not all like that. So there needs to be room for all of us. But I do think that universities bear a responsibility to steward our culture onto the next generation. And the ones that we have right now aren't doing that.
Libby made me have a thought, Lara, if I could chip in. I mean, maybe the
Go ahead.
model is just we go to 4 years of university and we spend a lot of time drinking and a lot of time watching sports ball. And then hopefully we learn a little bit. Like maybe if you're poor, you have to get a job. Maybe that's not the way to do it. Maybe the way to do it is we go get jobs. But we also, maybe it's not 100-hour work week. Maybe you have time so that there's experts who are online who you can buy courses, great courses. I mean, I'm just saying that, are you going to learn more from your average $60,000 a year Ivy League degree, or you take a course probably for free, if not maybe for a few bucks at Hillsdale College? Like what are you going to learn more from? And the model is just the assumption that it's built in, that we're working towards university. And all the time, I live in a neighborhood where every other house on the block, there's some kid who lives there who's stressed out about going to some university, and they're going to get out, and they're not going to have a job waiting for them. They're not going to have a Lexus and a country club membership waiting for them when they get out. They might not be able to get a job at all. And we just need to reset people's thinking that there are other ways forward, where the expectation is you're literate in the American canon, is you're literate in our founding documents. You should have a basic idea of philosophy and music and science. But we're not doing that anyway. We're getting less educated now, and it's costing more money.
We're not doing it. Yeah, we need to be doing it.
Absolutely. Well, listen, I like the idea. I'm all for the idea of a Charlie Kirk University of some variety. I would get on board with that. Guys, it's been a week, and I want to say thanks to both of you for coming on. I know that it's been a tough time, I think, for everybody, but I think the best thing we can do is continue talking, continue honoring Charlie's legacy. There will be a memorial for him, a memorial service for him this coming Sunday. I know that a lot of us are planning to attend it, and it's crazy that we have to say goodbye to this person. I don't think any of us would have ever imagined we'd be here in this way, but we're here in this way, and we're going to do the best we can to pick up what Charlie left off and carry it forward. And Libby and Alex, you guys do it every day. You both do it every day at Breitbart, at the Post Millennial. So thank you guys both for all you do. You are continuing on. You've been doing it, and we're gonna continue to do it here. So thank you both for joining us on this, sad, but hopefully moving forward will be positive episode. So thank you guys. Appreciate it. All right,
you,
to
Lara.
everybody at home, as always, make sure you like, subscribe, share, and follow. We'll see you back here next time for more of The Right View. And I won't back down.